Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the February 25th, 2014 meeting of the Glendale City Council being called to order at 6:03 p.m. We have a roll call for the City Council.
Council members: Friedman.
Here.
Najarian.
Here.
Quintero. Sinanian.
Here.
Mayor Weaver.
Here. Our flag salute tonight will be led by Councilmember Friedman and the invocation by City Clerk Artie Kasakian. Please stand.
Please join me. Renewing our pledge to the flag. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please remain standing for the invocation. February is Black History Month, and tonight we pray to give thanks and in recognition for the contributions that African culture has made and sewn into the fabric of our American cultural tapestry. The educator and black leader Booker T. Washington accurately observed that, quote, "one man cannot hold another man down in the ditch without remaining down in the ditch with him," end quote. Our nation has come a long way climbing out of that ditch, and we pray that the wounds of those who were treated inhumanely throughout our nation's racially fractured history will heal over time. Let us pray that never again in our lives, nor in the lives of those who will follow us, will one American hold another American down in the ditch for reasons of race, religion, creed, or sexual orientation, or any other reason or purpose. Let us pray that our city leaders act in accordance to our founding principles, that all men and women are created equal, and together we are united as one. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you. May we have your report?
The agenda for the February 25th, 2014 regular meeting of the Glendale City Council was posted on Thursday, February 20th, 2014 on the bulletin board outside City Hall.
Next, please.
Next item under presentation and appointments at 3A is the agenda preview for the meetings of Tuesday, March 4th, 2014.
Thank you, Mr. Pierce.
Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, for the Glendale Housing Authority for March 4th, we have no business agenda items. For that afternoon, we do have a special meeting of the Glendale City Council and the successor agency, Director of Economic Development, revisions to the agency's long-range property management plan. That evening for the City Council meeting to commence at 6 p.m., we have two items under consent. Chief Information Officer, this is regarding the renewal, maintenance, and support for the Police Department's CAD RMS system. And Chief Information Officer, this will be a website demonstration. That evening under action items, we have two items: Director of Community Development and establishment of the Brockmont Park Historic District Overlay Zone, and City Attorney and Chief of Police regarding emergency cost recovery regarding any party houses. We have one hearing: Director of Community Development, appeal of Design Review Board for property located at 3338 Deer Creek Lane. And that concludes my report, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. And before the next item on the agenda, as one of my colleagues would join with me in adjourning tonight's meeting in the memory of my wife's mother, Celia de Veriturta, that just died last week in Hawaii at the age of 93. If it wasn't for her during World War II, I would never have had my wife. Celia was a strong lady. During the war, her husband was in the Bataan Death March, which he escaped. She hid in the hills and was able to survive with help until after the war, where her husband joined the American forces during the war. And then he moved the family to Hawaii, and he went on to fight in the Korean War. And during his absence, since he was full-time military, she raised 5 children, including my wife. And if it wasn't for, as I said, if it wasn't for my mother-in-law's actions, a very tough lady, my wife would have never survived the war because she was an infant at the time. So the only thing I feel I can give my mother-in-law and the family is recognition from the city for her and my wife and her family. With that, is it okay if my colleagues just... Thank you very much. Okay, let's move on.
City Council and staff comments.
Yes. Ms. Friedman.
First,
I, along with some of my colleagues, attended the Founders Day in Montrose on Sunday. It was a great event. The farmers market's always very, very well attended, but it seemed to be extra enthusiasm in the crowd for Founders Day, and there were lots of demonstrations, there were booths, there were kids dancing, there was all kinds of wonderful stuff, and of course a giant cake that was handed out to the crowd. And I want to congratulate everyone that was involved. It was primarily the Shopping Park Association, but I know the Montrose Verdugo Chamber also participated, and it was just a fun day, and I look forward to next year. Montrose is now 101 years old, and it doesn't look a day over 100, I have to say. We also attended the groundbreaking for Veterans Village, which is going to be an affordable housing project for returning veterans, and it's something that's very needed. Veterans are coming back from Iraq and Afghanistan and around the world, and unfortunately, a lot of times they can't afford to find housing in the area, they can't afford to house their children, and they need special social services at times, and this housing complex will provide all of that to our veterans, and it's really the least that we can do. It was a very, very proud day, very well attended by veterans, our Congressman Adam Schiff, other members of the public, and I think all of us can say that we were all very proud to have attended the groundbreaking and look forward to seeing it open in the next 12 or 14 months. Lastly, and I didn't want to have to do this, but I had asked staff to ask Mayor Weaver to produce some letters of support that the city received about the Comfort Woman statue from various groups, including Japanese groups, and for whatever reason, he was reluctant to turn those over, even though they were presented to him not as personal correspondence, but in his role as the leader of the city, for the city. So I'm going to do an official public records request so that I can see these letters. They were never shown to me, even though they were sent, obviously, to all of us at the council. So I hate to have to do that, but it seems to be the only way that I can see these letters of support. Thank you.
We do not applaud in the council chambers. No laughter, we just don't do it. It's a matter of decorum.
Does that need a second, that request for the Public Records Act? Or?
No, anybody can make
no,
a
it
public
does not.
records.
Councilmember
Can we
Jones.
ask that you voluntarily turn them over to the council?
I've already made my statement. I'm not going to bring it up here.
I haven't heard your statement.
I don't know about the statement either.
I mean, for the record, Councilmember Freeman has made a public records request, so we'll treat it just like we would any other request and get the documents that that are in the city's possession.
Would anyone else in the council like to see those documents?
I certainly would.
Thank you.
Do you have any comments?
I do have some comments, Mr. Mayor. Several items, some are good. I am happy to inform the community that the BRT, which is the Bus Rapid Transit route from Pasadena, connecting the Gold Line to the Orange Line, passed the Planning Committee at the MTA this past week, and is going to the full board for approval on Thursday. Now, the BRT is a transit line which is similar to the Orange Line, which traverses the valley. So what we're doing is we're going to be identifying the route specifically and determining how much ridership can be anticipated. If it looks good, it may flourish into a light rail, similar to the Gold Line. This corridor has been identified as the second top corridor in all of LA County. Number one is the Vermont Avenue corridor. This wasn't easy to get through the MTA. I had to forge relationships with Mayor Villaraigosa and his votes at the time, and I don't need to get back into history, but some of those relationships that I forged were not looked upon very fondly by other members of the MTA board, and it ultimately was one of the reasons that I was not appointed to Metrolink, and one of the reasons that my reappointment to the MTA board was objected to. But I'm glad that I stood firm, and I stuck up for our rights to transportation, and we are soon going to be looking at this route and hopefully in the not-too-distant future have a nice transit line where we can go to Pasadena or out to the valley and then connect to downtown. Well, eventually I did return to the Metrolink board, and the Metrolink board had some great news to announce last week also. If you remember, there was a horrific crash in 2009 in which 25 lives were lost. It was caused by an employee of Veolia Transportation, a French company, who was texting while he should have been looking at the signals, and he blew through the red signal and collided with a freight train. Since that tragedy, the Metrolink board made a commitment to create the safest commuter rail line in the entire United States. And last week, that goal was realized with the final piece, which was called Positive Train Control, which is a computerized system which can override human error on the trains. If the train is going too fast, and you've seen the videos of those commuter trains that go too fast and they derail, or if the engineer misses a signal, or if he fails to yield to the right-of-way, this system is going to save all that, save the collisions from occurring. We've worked on the sealed corridor, which protects the cars and pedestrians that are crossing the tracks. We've worked on the energy crash management of the trains. These trains have reinforced structures, much like the cars do nowadays, a safety cage which completely encompasses the passenger cabs. We put inward-facing cameras into our trains, so now the engineer has a camera looking over his shoulder so we know exactly what he's doing. Now, they fought us on this. We went to court, but we won because it was a commitment of the board to keep it as safe as possible. Happy to announce that those safe crash energy management cars are made in South Korea. I understand we may have some South Korean visitors through the Hyundai Rotem plant, and all the Metrolink cars are those great Hyundai cars that will provide great safety. This was an expensive proposal, over $250 million to implement, but the board went out, made the commitment, and I personally went to Washington to work with Senator Feinstein, along with members of our board of directors, and we have achieved this benchmark, which the rest of the country has to meet. We've achieved it 20 months earlier than everyone else. And New York was against it, and Chicago was against it, and Washington was against it. But now that they see that we can do it, we're hoping that they all get on board. Now, the last thing I want to talk about, I think many of you know that I was very unhappy about the way the YMCA low-income housing issue was passed last week during a special joint council and housing authority meeting. And the more I came to think about it, the more I came to the conclusion that I was gamed. I was played by my staff, by the staff, and by my colleagues. And let me tell you why, and let me tell you how. This item was first placed on the agenda for today's date, February 25th. During the staff briefings and discussion, I think it became clear to staff that there were at least two members of the City Council that were against this project, against making it solely an artist colony. Oh, darn, someone said. February 25th? Frank Quintero's not going to be here. There's only going to be 4 council members. Could be a 2-2 vote. This project might not get passed. So what happens? The project gets moved up a week to February 18th. And when I asked, why is it moved up to February 18th? The answer was, oh, we have to have a full council. Oh, I said, guess what? I'm going to be out February 18th. So why don't we move it back to the 25th? Oh, no, we can't do that. We won't have the votes then. Well, I think that was clear manipulation on that. Well, then the deliberations started for this item. Mr. Quintero could only stay till 4:15. No problem, everyone said. Nigerian's not going to be here anyway. Well, Nigerian showed up, and I got a few surprised faces by staff and my colleagues as to, gee, what are you doing here? You're the fly in the ointment, apparently. So we start talking about the issues before us. And the mayor gets frustrated when I want to ask questions about the variance request. He says, didn't we already discuss this? Didn't you get your briefing? Why do you want to ask these questions out in public where people can hear why a variance is being pushed through? No, I had legitimate points to make in discussing that variance. Legitimate points. But, oh boy, look, it's 4:15. We don't have time to discuss those points. Our third vote is going to be leaving. Mr. Quintero has to run off to his airport. So what do? Let's move quick. Let's call the vote while Mr. Quintero is still here. Over my objection and the objection of another councilman, the vote on the variance, which was a key part of this project, was rammed through. It was rammed through. I'm ashamed at what happened, and I know that there may have been a certain desperation and urgency on the part of staff and my colleagues to put this through, but the way that I was cut off was deplorable. So I guess what we're saying then is we're saying that the ends justifies the means. The ends justify the means. Cut the discussion quick, as long as we can get that project through. Move that project up while we have Frank Quintero on the board so we can get that project through. Now, I'm not angry. Really, I'm not angry. But I just want to make sure that I know what the rules of the games are, that you guys have been playing, that I haven't been playing. I play hardball all the time at DMTA. I never thought we'd see this sort of thing here on the City Council. But I just want everyone to know that there are a few means that I can play to reach my ends. We're voting on members of the Airport Authority. We're voting on members of the Metropolitan Water District. In a few months, someone wants to be mayor. So I have never, ever in the past played hardball with those votes. I always went through the process and voted for what I thought was best for the city. But I feel really abused. I felt like Pollyanna. I felt like I was just taken advantage of. So I want everyone to know that I've got a hold of your playbook. I know what the plays are, and I might just run some of those plays myself in the next few months. Maybe someone will join me in that, but it was a sad day for the city of Glendale when my wish to discuss a legitimate subject was overruled. But let me ask one question. There was a variance vote, and those variance findings have to come back. Pray tell, are we going to wait till Mr. Quintero comes back before that gets before us, so we get that third vote, or is it going to come next week when there's four of us?
Members of council, Councilmember Jerry, those findings were part of that agenda packet. They were approved last week as part of the council vote.
Oh, it was all wrapped into one. And many of our other, in fact, I can't remember the time when it's all done in one shot. Usually there's a discussion and the findings come back. But that's okay. I got the playbook now.
Well, hold on.
I got the playbook.
I can't speak for your colleagues, and I can't speak
Well,
for...
it's not a question.
Well,
It's not a
but
question, Mr.
I think
Speaker.
that a clarification is necessary, and I'll just briefly respond to that. The only time that findings come back is when we have appeals to the council, and those appeal findings come back. It's always been our practice to bring those back when the recommendation is at odds.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.
You're welcome. What is next, please?
Next item is consent items. The following are routine and may be acted upon by one motion. Any member of council or the audience requesting separate consideration may do so by making such a request before a motion is proposed.
Do I have a motion on the consent calendar?
I'll move the consent calendar.
Second?
Second.
Roll call, please.
Council members: Friedman,
Yes.
Jarian,
Yes.
Quintero, Sinanian,
Yes.
Mayor Weaver.
Aye. Next, please.
Next item on the agenda is oral communications. However, per the practice of this council and you, Mayor, the oral communications will be split into two portions. First portion will be reserved for 3-minute community event announcements, followed by the full 5-minute portion at the conclusion of all agendized city business.
Thank you. First speaker, Leon Mayer. Well, you're back. You been on vacation or something?
I had a major surgery a
Oh,
few months ago. I'm recovering, doing fine, thank you.
thank you.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council and staff, My name is Leon Mayer, and I'm talking here tonight about the library event called One Book, One Glendale. It's this Thursday. This is kind of a heads up for anybody who is planning to go. Get there early. You can park north in the building north of the library, 3-hour validation. And it's free. And our speaker is Chris Bojalian. Chris Bojalian is a famous American writer. He's won more awards in his short career than you would believe. We believe he's going to be the next William Saroyan, who got the Pulitzer Prize award last century. He is just great. He got his big shot, first of all, when he appeared on Oprah Winfrey Show in 1997 with the book Midwives, which became a bestseller. Since that time, he's written 17 books, and several of them have been bestsellers, and Writer's Digest has lauded his work. And before I forget, Artie Kasakian is one who is responsible for him coming to the library, and Artie will kind of moderate the whole program. And the name of the book that he's going to talk about is The Sandcastle Girls. It's a book about the Armenian genocide, and it's not his latest book. His latest book is Close Your Eyes, Hold Hands, which has just come out. He's already on the lecture circuit on that. And his next book before that was The Light in the Ruins, a book about World War II and the German retreat from Italy. So he's written about everything and anything. He's a novelist. And where he got his idea about the Sandcastle Girls was that there was a conversation about most of the world knows nothing about the Armenian genocide. So he's written this novel, a beautiful novel called Sandcastle Girls, and that'll be our subject on the this Thursday. For your information, he's going to have a lot of his other books there. So anybody who's interested in these other books that I've mentioned and some of the other books that he's got awards for, they'll be there so you can buy them as well. So we urge you to come. I know it's late in the game. He's got a lot of publicity in the news press and in the LA Times and national reviews. And he'll be here Thursday. The event starts at 7 o'clock. I suggest you get there early. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Leon. Next speaker is Misha Leitner.
Say good evening. My name is Misha Leitner. I am the marketing and event coordinator for Elevate Lofton Skydeck. We're located on the corner of Broadway in Maryland. I'd just like to say thank you for that invitation. It was very nice in dedication to Black History Month. Okay, so here's our flyer. We have an event this coming Saturday. We're bringing food and fashion trucks to Glendale. As I know, there hadn't been an event like this before, so we have about 9 food and fashion trucks. We're going to close down a portion of Maryland Avenue and have the trucks bend. We have the library and store on wheels. We have 2 fashion trucks. We have the grilled cheese truck, Yogasaki burrito truck. We have Koji barbecue truck, which is like one of the most popular food trucks in America. So it's going to be from 4 p.m. to 8 o'clock. Yeah, just right there on the corner of Maryland. We're going to have we're going to give out free kid IDs sponsored by New York Life. We have a gift sponsored by MGM 5-Star Theater as well. So we feel like it might be a great community event. So we'd like to invite the council members as well as the public out. It's a free entry, and of course the food is vend. So didn't want to take up too much of your time. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Is that rain or shine?
Oh, well.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one. Yeah.
We are hoping there's no rain, so yeah, I guess pretty much rain or shine. It took me about few weeks to get the permit from the
And it's
city,
supposed to
so.
be a downpour on Saturday, so.
Yeah, maybe, perhaps we could schedule next Saturday, but we'll have to see. So,
Okay.
hopefully.
Come back again if you're rescheduling.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Last speaker is Relinda Bessemeyer.
Hello, Mr. Mayor and members of the City Council. My name is Relinda Biesmeyer. You get it one day because I'm coming back. But I wanted to say I'm a 37-year member or resident of Glendale, and I wanted to say thank you especially to Leo for putting my program together and presenting it with the email. Thank you. And so I wanted to say I represent the Glendale Youth Orchestra. This is our 25th year, and one of our major concerts, we have 3 a year. It's March 9th, and this promises to be a very different presentation than we've ever done before. Just by having the silent movie, and our orchestra members will be playing the music for it. And so we have a world-class conductor, Brad Kymak, and our orchestra members are taken from all over the city. It's not just Glendale, because recruiting is so difficult and paying for it too. But we do sponsor our youth. We have some scholarship programs, partial and whole, but not a lot, but as much as we can do. We are primary presenting members of the Alex Theater, and so we have to pay for our, shows. And so I'm here to encourage as many, Glendale residents as possible to try to attend our concert on March 9th, and the one we have on May 9th also, which is our last one of the season. But the thing is, we need to sell tickets. And so, but the thing is, it's outstanding music. It's classical for the most part. But the thing is, there are lots of kinds of music that are available to Glendale residents. And so, people need to remember that. And it's just beautiful. And so I wanted you to know that we are available on Twitter, Facebook, and GYO, Glendale Youth Orchestra.com, so that if you choose to look us up. And we have always been trying to get the council members to come to our concerts, but they used to be on Tuesdays, and now they're on Sundays. So, we do hope for a better representation, just so you can see, how good these young people are. And so, basically, that's what I wanted to say. And parking, that some people think that, it's so expensive. And if you do park on the street, yes, you do have to feed those meters. But if you go to the Orange Street parking structure, and inside the Alex, we validate. And so you just pay $1, for the whole concert. And sometimes, there are refreshments that the Glendale City, sells at the concert also. So everything is for the city of Glendale. So I just want to say thank you, and I will be back next week, March 2nd.
Thank you very much.
Ms. Biesmeyer, just
Okay.
a quick question, Mr. Mayor. Not a question, actually, a comment. You said that you'd like better representation in City Council. I just want to let you know that I, along with several of my fellow council members, will be in Washington, D.C. representing the city on that weekend. So if I'm not there, do not take that as...
No, you told me
Sorry.
last time that you
Okay, I
were going
did.
to be out of town.
I did.
Okay,
Okay,
yes,
good.
you did. And so
Several
I
of us will be out of
Yes.
town.
Right. But
Not just
if you
him.
ever, but,
Yeah.
for so many years, we did try to get the council to come.
Sure.
And you couldn't because it was a conflict.
Right.
And so I think it's better this time.
Thank you for
Thank
putting
you
it
very
together.
much.
Okay, I have no more cards.
Mr. Mayor, if I may make an announcement.
Yes.
And this is for the 51st Annual Mayor's Prayer Breakfast that will be taking place on Thursday, March 13th, 2014, at the Glendale Civic Auditorium. Admission is $25. Doors open bright and early at 6 a.m. Breakfast is served at 6:30 a.m., and the program begins at 7 a.m. And if you're still bleary-eyed by then, there is a bagpiper every year who will wake you up at this event. The keynote speaker this year is Charlene Tilton. Many remember her playing the role of Lucy Ewing in the television series Dallas. She will be talking about her growth as an actress, growing up with a mentally ill single mother and no father figure, attending Hollywood High School, taking acting classes, pretty much being on her own from the age of 15, and then her ability to work hard and achieve the American dream and much success in Hollywood. Again, that is the Mayor's Prayer Breakfast, which will take place on Thursday, March 13, 2014. There's great musical performances, inspirational speakers, and just the camaraderie of your fellow community members who are gathered in prayer at breakfast.
Thank you.
Mr. Weaver?
Yes,
Mr.
Ms.
City
Freeman.
Clerk, along the same lines, Mr. Sinani and myself will be in Washington that day. Otherwise, we would be there. It's always a great event, and I want to apologize for us being out of town during it.
Thank you.
What's the date again?
Sunday.
13th.
13th, Thursday, March
Thursday the
13th,
13th.
2014. Thank you.
Okay, what is next?
Next item, item 7, adoption of ordinances. 7A is an ordinance amending Chapter 30.37 of the Glendale Municipal Code relating to the Urban Art Program. This was introduced February 4, 2014 by Councilmember Friedman.
Ms. Friedman.
I'd like to move 7A.
Or second?
Second?
Roll call.
Councilmembers Friedman,
Yes?
Najarian,
Yes.
Quintero, Sinanian,
Yes.
Mayor Weaver.
Next, please.
Under action items, 8A is General Manager of Glendale Water and Power regarding Unit Number 9, LM6000 gas turbine at the Grayson Power Plant. 6A1 or 8A1 is a resolution dispensing with competitive bidding and awarding a one-time repair and parts supply contract with General Electric Packaged Power, Inc.
Thank you, Mr. Ochoa.
Just very briefly, sir, the reason why we're recommending dispensing with competitive bidding and going straight with GE is because they are more closely located and have access within an appropriate time frame for us and our needs at the power plant. The other competing providers would be overseas or in Canada. So if you have any specific questions, certainly Mr. Zern and his staff can answer those.
Okay, Mr. Sinania?
Okay. So I understand that it wouldn't be convenient. I get that. But how, if we were to put it in material terms, in $2, how inconvenient is it? And that's question one. Everything has a value. Everything has to have a value. So have we done that analysis? Do we know that in terms of time and money, it would be cost prohibitive to go with any one of the other providers? Second question is, the report says that GE is the original equipment manufacturer. And that may be the case, but we're looking at a contract with General Electric Packaged Power, Inc., which is a separate corporation. It's not GE. I mean, I looked it up. It's not GE. It may be related to GE. So
it's a subsidiary of GE.
It's a subsidiary.
They just put they'll put some of their maintenance under a different wing. But this is the provider, Mr. Sinani, this is the provider of genuine GE parts, which is a must for us to maintain the warranty. And while this is technically, legally, a request to dispense with a competitive bidding, it is not for lack of due diligence. As Mr. Ochoa indicated, the other three firms are all foreign firms. And really, the biggest issue is the 90-day turnaround time to get a part back. This is our newest power generation facility, and one we rely on very much. Because, as you know, some of our other equipment is very, very old and not nearly as reliable, nor is it nearly as efficient. So that 90-day turnaround time, which in the due diligence that the staff did, could not be met by the foreign firms. In fact, I believe in every case, our parts would have to be shipped overseas in order for the repair to be made. There was a cost difference in just doing that, but the biggest issue was not being able to meet the 90-day turnaround time.
So
and GE can actually beat that in almost every case. And again, it wasn't a matter of just saying, well, we just want GE, it's original equipment manufacturer and so forth. Staff has negotiated with GE for nearly 6 months in order to get the best price. So again, while it's legally a dispense with competitive bidding request, there's a lot of work that went into this to make sure that we got the best deal for the city. And more importantly, the ability for us to turn that repair around as quickly as possible, because without that unit, and especially if this occurred in the summer, and we're right now in a particular situation where it needs to be repaired, and that'll get us ready for the summer. We would be hard-pressed to meet some of the demand we have in the summer, at least in some cost-effective manner, if we didn't have this unit.
And what's the next best turnaround quote that we got?
I believe it was twice, in most cases, twice the amount of time.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
all.
Any more question? Okay, is there a motion on 8B?
I'll move the item.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Roll call.
Council members Friedman,
Yes.
Najarian,
Abstain.
Quintero, Sinanian,
Yes.
Mayor Weaver.
Aye. That was 8A, right?
That was 8A. 8B is General Manager of Glendale Water and Power regarding issue a purchase order for an MTS 5100 protective relay test systems with accessories. B1 is a resolution dispensing with competitive bidding and executing a purchase order with Mana Test Systems, Inc. in the amount not to exceed $66,000.
Mr. Cho.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council,
Yes, sir.
this is a particular issue that we're reacting to as a result of an increase in a mandate from the North American Electrical Reliability Corporation, which sets the standard for safety, testing, and reliability for all electrical utilities in North America. They're requiring that we expand our testing of our equipment. And in order for us to do that, we essentially need to add on to the existing equipment we have, and our equipment is Manta. And so the only way to add on and to meet the mandate, short of completely replacing everything, which I don't believe is either cost-effective or wise from a time management sense, is to add this particular software component and equipment so that we can meet the mandates of NERC.
Any questions? If not, is there a motion?
I don't have a question, but I do have a comment. I read, I understand the reasoning, and what I'm saying right now doesn't necessarily apply to this, but I just feel like I'm constantly having to look at proposals that dispense with the competitive bidding process. I feel like more contracts come in front of us with the competitive bidding being dispensed with than actually the other way around. And I don't know, I'm going to start keeping count at this point because, again, it may not apply to this particular one. I'm just saying the feeling that I'm getting by constantly seeing and constantly being asked to dispense with the competitive bidding.
And Mr. Sinani, and most of those probably are coming from me and the Water and Power Department, and there's a lot of, as I'm learning, continuing to learn, there's a lot of intricacies involved, especially at the power plant operations. As you know, some of it is just old equipment that has very few, if not just one, source for materials and parts and service. In other cases, like this one, where we get a mandate that's extended, we certainly could go out to bid for a whole new package, but as I said, I don't think that's in the best interest of the city. So I can tell you, and the staff will echo that, I am hammering them constantly about the need for us to make sure that we're looking ahead, that where we can issue proposals and RFIs and RFQs and specs, we will be doing that. But in other areas, although we explore all the options, when I come back to you here, it's with what I believe is in the best interest of the city overall. And I know I've brought a few of them to you lately. I'm the one that...
Probably also worth noting that certainly I think maybe the reason why it feels that way for the council is because anytime we dispense with competitive bid, we have to come back to you. 4 of the procurements that you did on the consent calendar, well in excess of $1 million worth of procurement, were all done competitively. So certainly we're sensitive to it, but unfortunately you are going to see all the dispense with competitive bid because we got to bring them to you.
Okay, there's no more questions. Is there a motion on 8B1?
Second.
Roll call.
Council members Friedman,
Yes.
Najarian,
Yes.
Quintero, Sinanian,
Yes.
Mayor Weaver.
Aye. 8C, please.
8C is City Attorney regarding discussion of a potential ballot measure amending city charter relating to the filling of a council vacancy. C1 is a resolution authorizing to require appointment by a majority of the city council within 30 days or call for a special election, such appointee to serve the unexpired term. If term expires at next general municipal election, or if term does not expire, then require appointed seat to stand election. Option 1. 2 is resolution authorizing to require appointment by a majority of the city council within 30 days or call for a special election, such appointee to serve the unexpired term. Option 2. 3, resolution calling for arguments for and against proposed charter amendment for the ballot for the special election on Tuesday, June 3rd, 2014. 4, motion appointing the city council to draft argument in favor of adopting the proposed charter amendment and designating city attorney to draft such argument.
Thank you. Mr. Ochoa?
Yes.
Or
Yeah.
Which one's going to take the lead?
I'm going to start
Mr.
off, and then I'm going to kick it off to Lucy, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, members of council, the item before you has to do with the particular section of our charter which is requiring us to have the upcoming June election. Councilmember Sinani, I believe, was one who initially requested this, but it's actually on your staff's mind as well. In April 2005, the voters approved this charter amendment which revised this section of the charter, which required that in the event of a vacancy that was filled by appointment, then the person appointed to that position, their seat had to be succeeded by an election, either at the next general municipal election or at a election that could be consolidated with either the county election or the statewide primary or the statewide general election. As a result, and I think there's a little bit of unintended consequences here. The intent, again, was to get, if the council wanted to appoint in the event of a vacancy, the intent was to get an election before the voters as soon as possible, believing that it would be cost-effective to consolidate, for example, with the county or with the state, and that it would be efficient to do so as quickly as possible. And I think a couple of the circumstances which have arisen, as we've seen, one is that we're having to have two elections essentially within a year of each other, one this June and then one in April, for the same seat. In addition, the cost savings that were probably anticipated or suspected have not really come to fruition. It would have cost us over $800,000 to have consolidated the election with the November election of last year. In addition, even this election that's being held in June is going to cost us to the tune of $230,000, which is essentially what it would cost us to run a special election on our own. And as a result, those cost savings have not really been borne out. And so what we were looking at, and the council asked us to bring this back in any event, was perhaps another change to the charter which would streamline this process a little bit, still give the council the flexibility to either appoint someone in the event of a vacancy and then have that seat filled by a subsequent municipal election, or have that person serve until the unexpired term. There's a couple of options which we're suggesting. We're suggesting, obviously, the first option, which is on your staff report and on your agenda, and I'll have Lucy Varpetian of my office kind of go through what the options would be and how they would actually work compared to the current process.
Could I just ask one question? If I'm right, this whole concept is to avoid us being forced into a county-wide election and spending $250,000. Because if I read this right, it's the next general election where the cost would be much lower to us, or a municipal election. But it's when we have to do it, like this time with the county,
right,
in a primary, it's costing us an arm and a leg. And this is a way that we can eliminate that cost.
This, again, and Lucy will go through the options, but would allow you initially to say we want to appoint someone to fill this position, or we want to hold a special election to fill this position, or we want it to go to the next general municipal election. But in the event that we do appoint, then that person, that seat is up for election at the next general municipal election. And without us having to be forced to either have a special election after that or consolidate with the county or the state.
Lucy?
Mr. Mayor, members of council, we have a quick PowerPoint that we've prepared that will help outline the two options. First, the characteristics that both options share with each other. The first bullet point is that the vacancy must be filled by a majority vote of the council, or immediately call for a special election in the event that the council does not wish to appoint. There's no 30-day wait period for that. The second...
If I may, just briefly, or if it's close enough to the general election like we had with when Councilmember Gomez was on the council, then you could just leave that seat vacant until the next general municipal election. That's current. That never changed, and that we're not proposing that change in this process either.
What's close enough? What's the time frame?
Prior to, is it 180 days? Or
180 days.
180 days.
So the next item that both options share is that the appointment must be made within 30 days of the vacancy. If the appointment is not made within the 30 days, then council must call for a special election, except that if the special election, and that the special election must be held within 120 days. And this is where, unless the next general municipal election is no more than 180 days away. So if the next general municipal election is 180 days away, then you can let that seat be vacant until such time and allow for it to be filled during the next general municipal election.
And our charter currently provides for this, so we're not recommending to change to this part of the process. It's the second part. What do you do after you've appointed someone that we think can be streamlined a little bit?
Here's where the two options differ. Option 1 states that the appointee must serve the unexpired term if the term is up at the next general municipal election. So if a person is appointed and that term is up at the next general municipal election, that's the length of the service. If the term does not expire at the next general municipal election, then the appointee serves only until the next general municipal election, at which time the seat is up for an election and another individual is, or the same individual is elected by the voters. This provides that the nomination period for the next general municipal election has not yet commenced.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
So then, does that seat go up for election again in 2 years? Or does it switch to a 4-year?
It serves for the unexpired term, so the term of the seat does not change. So it will be only for 2 years if that's what's remaining on the term.
But let's say it's a 4-year term. So in 2 years, that seat's up for election. So does that person who wins that seat then serve for 2 years or for 4 years?
So either the term is up, let's take the current example. If the term is up in 2015, then the person serves until 2015 and a new person runs.
Right.
If the seat is up in 2017, then that person's term ends, the appointee's term ends in 2015, a new person runs, and that term still ends in 2017.
Okay, so it doesn't switch. You don't all of a sudden have 4
Right.
people,
That's correct.
4 seats revolving.
That's
Correct.
So this is where the two options differ. The second option is more straightforward. It says that regardless of when the term is up, that the appointee serves the balance of the unexpired term. And that's the variation between the two. We have it here in a summary format on a single page, and we're available to answer questions.
And so just to sum up, the first option is what we're recommending. It allows for, if the council wants to make an appointment to fill a vacancy, it can do so, and that as long as there is time for an election, if the vacancy occurs prior to the nomination period, then that's kind of what we set. It's as lawyers, we kind of like bright lines and easy to apply rules, and so that's what we suggested as a recommendation. Council may have different ideas on how to actually apply that, but our thought was if the vacancy occurs prior to the commencement of the nomination period, then candidates, voters will know how many seats will be up at that upcoming election. So, for example, if there was a vacancy, if there had been a vacancy in before sometime in December of 2012, and that by April of 2013 you would know how many seats would be open for that particular election at the commencement of the nomination period. It seems to us it would be a little bit easier to apply than saying at a later period. Just to give you a little bit of background, the old charter provision prior to the 2005 amendment just said so long as there's sufficient time. And that's something, obviously, that becomes subject to interpretation later on down the road, so we thought we'd kind of create a hard and fast rule. But again, it's up to the council to decide what's the perfect line to say this is the point where an appointee has to stand for election, or that seat has to stand for election at the upcoming general municipal election, or they go on to the remainder of that unexpired term, as the case in example 1.
Ask a quick procedural question.
Yeah.
Yes.
Can we get the city clerk's take on this?
Absolutely.
Your take on this, Mr. Kasakian?
Well, the current system is not a perfect system. As the city attorney stated, had this election occurred in November, it would have cost the city, as we were quoted by the county, to the tune of about $750,000. That's not including other expenses that inevitably are added onto it. In fact, the figure quoted for this election, $230,000, well, it does not include, for instance, adding of an amendment, charter amendment, which would add another $20,000 to it. So we're talking about $250,000. I think that anything that we can do to ensure that the public voice is heard, and particularly in, I think, municipal elections, which are the voters who vote in municipal elections are people who follow city affairs very closely. It doesn't dilute the process. It doesn't dilute the attention through lumping it with possibly other issues which may occur in this coming election when we have judges and other items that are on it, I think is in the best interest of the city. And that is, in my humble opinion. Of course, it's entirely up to the council what they wish to do. I do believe that the individuals who did review the charter and make this recommendation did it with the best intentions, not quite realizing that the added cost would be so potentially crippling to the city. And this just doesn't tie up our hands in the future.
And I can agree with that more. I mean, if you see the intent behind this was clearly to make the process more open and to be more cost effective, and it's had some contrary effects.
In the old days, the county and the state were a lot less population, so things have changed.
And of course, we keep stressing the monetary aspect of this. There's also the sort of the disruptive nature of having what we're having right now. We just had an election last year. We're going to have another election in June, and 10 months later, we're having a third election. It's not very conducive to the city governance. And on top of that, there may be some voter fatigue associated with people having to go out and vote so often. So it's another factor.
Okay, I want to make sure when we go through these 4 items, we either vote 8C1 or 8C2, then take 3 and 4 together separately.
And certainly if the council has modifications on the language.
Or modifications, yeah.
One thing, if I may add, and I don't know if the city attorney would like to clarify this, but this is an opportune time at a statewide election for us to have a charter amendment, because there may be provisions in the future where if we do want to have charter amendments, it will have to be held under a statewide election, if I'm not mistaken.
It just has to be held with the statewide primary, statewide general, or our own general municipal election. The law forbids amending the charter at just a special election.
In the wake of the Bell scandal, it has to be held at one of these major elections. So this is an opportune time to have this considered by the voters.
Any discussion or recommendation? Mr. Najarian.
I would prefer option 1. I think that brings the appointed interim candidate before the voters at the earliest possible time, which would not necessarily be a special election, but could be a general municipal election. And I think it's too bad we didn't have that rule in effect now. Let's put it this way. If we had option 1 in effect currently, so Mr. Quintero would have held that until the April 2015 election.
Correct.
We would have saved this
$250,000.
Well, I would support option 1.
Any other takers?
I'd also support option 1 for the reasons stated by
I don't know, do you have cards, Mr. Mayor?
No.
Okay.
Mr. Najarian, and because also option 2 is, may have the tendency of sort of usurping the voters' right to choose their elected official, because then we appoint someone for too long a period. So I don't like that. So option 1 for me.
Ms. Friedman?
I also support option 1.
And so do I. If it passes and it never comes up again, I hope that the council that's seated does interviews for the potential candidates and selects the person here transparently within 30 days. That's what I would hope would be the best way. But that's not for here today. Is there a motion, a second on 8C1 and 8C1? Yeah.
Do 2 and 3 as well at the same time?
Well, 3 and 4.
Right, 3 and 4.
3 and 4, yes, you can.
Okay, we'll do 8C1, 3, and 4.
Second.
I'm sorry, motion was made by... Thank you.
Second.
Council members Friedman,
Yes.
Najarian,
Yes.
Caro, Nanyan,
Yes.
Mayor Weaver.
Aye. And next, please.
Next item on the agenda is a public hearing. 9A is Fire Chief regarding weed abatement program for 2014. 9A1 is motion to approve abatement order directing the Agricultural Commissioner, Director of Weights and Measures, to abate the nuisance on each declared parcel.
Mr. Ochoa.
This is the annual hearing that is held after all the notifications are made. We have 672 parcels that have been identified through our contract with the county. So at this point, if you have any specific questions about the program or the process used by Department of Weights and Measures, or rather Agriculture, they are here. They can speak to the issue, as is our fire chief and his staff. If not, you can open the public hearing and take protest and comment.
Okay, I'll open the public hearing. I have no speaker cards. Public hearing is closed. Is there a motion?
Are these, well, I just want to make sure my house isn't on here. Are these alphabetical? There's one on Hollister Terrace. That's not you, is it? Are these alphabetical? They seem to be in a zone or code. Okay, I don't see my house, so I would be obviously
Yeah, you'd
precluded
be
from
voting against this.
participating anyway. But
Sneaky.
is there a motion?
Is there-
Second.
Is there a motion and a second?
Sorry.
I think-
I was conferring with legal counsel.
Is there a motion and a second on the weed abatement? We just had a fire up at Forest Lawn
Yes,
at Adams Hill.
If it hasn't been moved, I'll move. It's been
There-
moved, I'll
there-
second.
Is there a second? Okay, now, roll call.
Council members: Friedman,
Yes.
Najarian,
Yes.
Quintero, Sinanian,
Yes.
Mayor Weaver.
Aye.
Thank you.
Bring on the ghosts.
Next item is oral communication. This is the full 5-minute portion. Discussion is limited to items not part of this agenda. Each speaker will be allowed 5 minutes. Council may question or respond to the speaker, but there will be no debate or decision, and city manager may refer the matter to the appropriate department for an investigation and report.
Okay, I have 17 speakers, 5 minutes each. You don't have to speak the full 5 minutes if you do not wish to. It's your option. Anybody else still want to turn in a card? Turn it in now. I won't take any more cards after this time. Okay. Hold on, we're just trying to see what
Excuse
this
me,
gentleman...
Mr. Mayor, it appears that there was a card that was submitted on the weed abatement item.
He pulled it back.
We understand, but it's another gentleman, not the card that was not.
Oh, I have no other cards.
That is it.
It is a gentleman who had submitted a card.
Oh, okay, Mr. City Attorney, we have
Motion to
voted.
reconsider?
Up to the council, or Mr. Mayor, you can just hear the comments.
Oh, we should.
So I'll move to reconsider.
Is there a second? Roll call.
Council members: Friedman,
I'm
Just
okay with
open
doing that,
discussion.
but,
It's just open the discussion again,
Just okay.
so I can hear from the speaker.
yes.
Najarian,
Yes.
Quintero, Sinanian,
Yes.
Mayor Weaver.
Aye.
How much time, Mr. Mayor?
Let's try 2 minutes, considering what I got out here. Oh, is this your name, Alfred Rodriguez?
Yeah, Mr. Weaver,
Sorry.
members of the council. What I'd like to ask the fire chief to remove me for the abatement program. Because I went ahead and paved the lot. I actually put crushed gravel on all the lots. And we don't have any grass or any hazard in there. You could see.
Wait. Are you turning in photographs of your place?
Pardon me?
Is this your place you're giving us pictures of?
Yes.
Okay, we can't take action. Yeah, we can look at them, but do you want to talk to the fire department about your situation?
Yes.
Okay, if you can, I'll give this back to the city clerk and put your phone number on it, and the fire department will talk to you. The fire chief is in the back. If you'd like to catch him on your way out, you can do that also.
All
Chief
right.
Scoggins is right behind you.
Thank you, Mr. Weir.
Very welcome.
So I'll move 9A.
Second.
Roll call.
Council members: Friedman,
Yes.
Najarian,
Yes.
Quintero, Sinanian,
Yes.
Mayor Weaver.
Hi. Sir? Sir, the fire chief is in the back waiting for you.
He's just filling out his paperwork. He's just putting his address.
Submitting the pictures for the record. We never saw it. Okay, let's go on. With the item, the first speaker is Dave. Okay, you're going to have to let me apologize if I don't get the pronunciation right on all the names. David Makawa, followed by Brian.
Thank you very much.
Looks like Crabtree.
Thank you very much, members of City Council, for letting me speak here tonight. My name is David Monkawa, and I've worked a couple blocks down the street for 16 years. I work at the California Nurses Association. We represent nurses, one of which is Glendale Memorial, and we work right across from Glendale Galleria. I'm here tonight to speak in protest of the lawsuit against our city of Glendale by two individuals who want the Comfort Woman statue in Central Park removed. That's why I'm here tonight. First of all, I believe the credibility of the plaintiffs is somewhat questionable. And by that I mean one of the plaintiffs in the lawsuit, because I have a copy of the lawsuit, I was able to see it. His name is Koichi Mera, whose residence is listed as Surfview Drive in Pacific Palisades. Even though the gentleman lives 36 miles away from the statue, he claims he would like to use Central Park and its adult recreation center. However, he avoids doing so due to the statue. So I wonder how many times Mr. Mera has visited Glendale other than to speak out against the statue. Seems to be quite a trip for an elderly gentleman. But he may do so. I don't know that. The second plaintiff is not a human, it's a corporation. It's an organization called the Global Alliance for the Global Alliance for Historical Truth. Now, when I did a GuideStar search where all the nonprofits are listed, there's no such group that existed. The closest that I could find was something called the Global Alliance for the Preservation of World War II Historical Truth. This is an organization which has been around for some time, and they are a legitimate nonprofit. They send in papers and financials and all of that. And they're, in fact, the opposite of this other organization that's suing the city of Glendale. They, in fact, want to preserve, historical truths such as the rape of Nanking or the Comfort Women issue. So this is a group that's opposite of that. But I could find no organization called the Global Alliance for Historical Truth. I did, however, find Mr. Koichi Mera's group, which is called the Study Group for the Rebirth of Japan. Mr. Koichi Mera, one of the plaintiffs, if you recall in past city council meetings, was an outspoken opponent of the statue, and he was also the translator and the point person when the representatives from the Japanese political party came here to complain about the Comfort Woman statue. The other point is that they allege that the statue violated Glendale's municipal code, that you all didn't do your jobs, and that this somehow went and was erected without democratic discussion and it violated the code. I'm not a lawyer and not going to pretend to have legal arguments against it. But just from a standpoint of a resident of Glendale or a person who has worked in Glendale for some time, just common sense-wise, if that were the case, then there are so many statues and plaques here. For example, the Veterans Memorial, the beautiful one out front there, I don't know if when that was approved in 1997, I didn't see any records about the inscriptions being approved. Nor did I see any of the plaques in here that line City Hall. I don't know if any of those inscriptions were also approved and discussed. Now, probably you all approved, the general concept and even more specific than that, but I don't know about every detailed inscription. So following this logic, they all have to be removed, I guess. The plaintiffs also claim that that the statue threatens the foreign relations with Japan, who's an ally. Again, international law, I'm not a lawyer and I'm not going to pretend to be, but it seems to me that if that were the case, Germany is a pretty important NATO ally in the United States, as I recall, last remember. Does that mean that the Holocaust Museum, would that be sort of an impediment to good relations with Germany? Turkey is a very important ally of the U.S. in the Middle East. Does that mean that anything about monuments about the Armenian genocide in 1915 would have to be removed because it jeopardizes relationships with our ally Turkey? No, I don't think so. And last but not least, of all the egregious half-truths, bear with me for just 1 second.
Quickly.
I'm getting to the punchline.
Yes, quickly.
Of all the exaggerations, one of the worst, and I saved it for the last, the best for last, or the worst for last. 2 days ago in Japan, there was a press conference where a few of the politicians, one of them, Ms. Yoshiko Matsuura, who came to meet with Mr. Mera and meet with groups to protest the statue, had a press conference, and in this press conference stated that the memorial, and I quote, the memorial statue spread false propaganda and has resulted in bullying, harassment, and discrimination against Japanese residents in the Glendale area. Japanese school children are suffering from bullying by Koreans. Now, this was very alarming. It was a horrible thing to say about the city of Glendale, a horrible thing to say about the residents, the Korean residents, 5.4%. There's about 10,353 Koreans who live here. But only 0.6% Japanese. That's a little over 1,000.
Sir.
I have to find Japanese in the shopping center.
Sir,
you know what I mean?
Sir, you've had 5 minutes, even
I'm sorry,
more.
Mr. Weaver, but just let me conclude.
But-
and finally, I just wanted to say that there is a silver lining to all this. Because as I look out in the audience that's gathered here tonight, this issue has presented an opportunity for Japanese like myself, Koreans and Chinese people, all to unite against this issue.
Mr. Mayor, it's already 6
So
minutes.
thank you very much, and sorry
Mr.
for
City
taking up a
Clerk.
little bit more of the time, but again, it's true that there's a silver lining for every cloud. Thank you very much.
What'd you say, Mr. City Clerk? No applauding, no booing in here. Maintain the decorum of the council chambers, please. Now, what'd you say, Mr. Cassatt?
I know that the speaker was very passionate, but that approached 6 minutes. I just was letting him
And
know that
I'm
his
telling
time
the
was
rest
low.
of you, I'm going to cut you off at the 5 minutes. If I allow one, then I got to allow the next 6, 7 minutes. No. You have 5 minutes. Brian Crabtree, followed by John Gee.
Yes, thank you, City Council, for letting me stand up here. Hopefully, I will not take 5 minutes of your time, since the first gentleman already stated some of the points that I was going to bring up. One of the things, I happen to be British by birth and American by choice. And I have to say that one of the things that makes me proud to be an American is that I live in a country that not only brings out the best parts of its past and is proud of its accomplishments, but also is very honest in looking at its faults such as what we did to the Indians, slavery in this country. We admit these faults freely, and we teach them to our children. Now, this group, this Global Alliance, which is what brought me out here, because I heard about this on the internet, one of the things you have to ask is, what do they represent when they say they're a global alliance for historic truth? The facts are that the Comfort Woman issue was investigated not only by the United States military in depth, but also by the British, because of British nationals and people in the colonies, Malaya and that were also abused by the Japanese. The Australians have in-depth investigations on it. So do the French, since at that time Vietnam belonged to France. The Comfort Woman statue is not just a Korea versus Japan thing. It is simply a memorial to the 200,000 women who were abused throughout Asia, not just Korea, but China, Singapore, Vietnam, the Philippines, all of these places. It also represents that there were foreign nationals of British, Dutch, French, and even some American women who were abused, that were captured and put in internment camps by the Japanese during the war. This does not mean that Japan of today is a terrible country. My best friend is a Japanese American. And I love Japanese culture. In fact, I'm going to go over to the Galleria and watch Hayao Miyazaki's new anime movie after I'm done here. And that brings another point. Last year, around July, Hayao Miyazaki, who is Japanese and is admired around the world for his many movies, actually made an essay in Japan where he supported the comfort women issue and wanted his government to acknowledge it. This lawsuit is frivolous that's been brought up. It opens up a Pandora's box, and I hope that you will take the stand, as most Americans have always done, taking a stand for truth, and fight this, because it just can't be allowed to happen that a group that wants to deny historical fact is going to try and get this statue removed. Where does it stop if they get their way? Will the Rosenthal Holocaust Museum be taken down because the neo-Nazis don't want it in this country? So I thank you very much.
Thank you for coming. I'll get you all yet. Okay, John.
John G.
John G., followed by Betty Chu.
Okay, I am from the Chinese American Citizens Alliance. I'm its former president in San Gabriel Valley, but I now live in Laguna Hills, so I drove here 50-odd miles for this. This is a very fine city. This city, in having that statue placed here, shows that it has a conscience and that it is a bright light in this world. Say, we need to keep the truth no matter how painful. But the interesting thing about this lawsuit is it contradicts a number of apologies that the Japanese government itself had issued on this situation. You know, they call it comfort women. Well, actually, there were sex slaves. This is from the internet. It is Wikipedia, so the accuracy may be suspect, and I think that you need to look at it carefully. But in this, there are more apologies by prime ministers and chief of the foreign ministry apologizing for the comfort women situation. Let me read you. And in 2007, interestingly enough, let me find 2007, sorry. In March 1, 2007, Prime Minister Abe stated in the newspaper article that there was no evidence that the Japanese government kept sex slaves, even though the Japanese government had already admitted the use of brothels in 1993. On March 27th, however, the Japanese parliament issued an official apology. This was regarding the surviving comfort women who demanded an apology from the Japanese government for being used as sex slaves. So this lawsuit, and those who deny that this occurred, have ignored their government. It has not trickled down to the public for whatever cultural reason there is, and they have not expended the necessary effort to make this known. One of the interesting things I also discovered is that, did you know that there has not been an official apology for Pearl Harbor? Now, President Obama went over and apologized for the atomic bomb. Have the Japanese apologized for Pearl Harbor yet? I bring this to you to give you a framework of thinking about the people that are suing you, as well as your sensitivity that this is a stubborn culture that will not admit error. That's my personal opinion. Thank you.
It's getting better every time. Betty Chu, followed by Joseph Chu. You know, right, Betty?
Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, my name is Betty Chu, former mayor of the City of Monterey Park. I support your courageous decision on the Comfort Woman statue, the first of its kind in the western United States. The gift of a World War II memorial monument was installed on our City Hall front lawn by unanimous council vote just within the last few years. Like the Comfort Woman statue, the World War II Memorial Monument, which recognizes the sacrifices of the Chinese military and civilians, is the first of its kind in the world. But like the Comfort Woman statue, it serves as a reminder of the atrocities of war, an education to prevent future wars, an education for all of us, not just the city of Glendale. Contrary to the allegations in the complaint, the Comfort Woman statute does not violate the foreign affairs power and the supremacy clause of the Constitution. How does acceptance of the gift of a memorial monument interfere with foreign policy power? And how is it the exercise of a power that belongs to the president? Further, there is neither federal law nor treaty that prevents a city from the installation of a monument which reminds us of historical facts. To the contrary, this statute is consistent with, quote, promoting freedom and democracy and protecting human rights around the world. That is the United States foreign policy, central to it. In fact, the statue monument statement says, quote, it is our sincere hope that these unconscionable violations of human rights shall never recur. And it's quoted in the complaint. Another one of the allegations of the violation of the municipal code. They forgot to tell the council that an exemption is provided under section 30.33.020. Therefore, no violation. It is also consistent with the statement by the House of Representatives, 121, that the government of Japan, quote, should clearly and publicly refute any claims that the sexual enslavement and trafficking of the comfort women for the Japanese Imperial Armed Forces never occurred. Prior actions and statements by Japan's government officials confirm that these women were being used as sex slaves for the gratification of the Japanese Imperial Army. Some have argued that it was consensual on the part of the women and therefore not rape. At best, how can consent to requests or demands from an enemy military troop can be interpreted in any other way than under duress and threat? Consent under duress and threat is still rape. The plaintiffs assert that the Comfort Women statute threatens irreparable injury to each of them by, quote, effectively denying them full enjoyment of the park's benefits, unquote. One of the plaintiffs claims she suffers from feelings of exclusion, discomfort, and anger. If she actually feels that way, can you or even she imagine the extent of the feelings of the comfort women? It is shameful that the plaintiffs have added insult to the injury with this lawsuit. This council has acted in various ways for many years to remember the Armenian genocide. The sex slaves of World War II for the Japanese Imperial Army deserve just as much consideration. Therefore, leave the Comfort Woman Monument as a small token of acknowledgement of their sufferings. But most of all, leave it for all of mankind's benefit. Quote, for only from truth in history can we secure justice for victims, safeguard humanity from repeating mistakes of the past, and bring about genuine reconciliation and lasting peace among all people, unquote. A quote from the Global Alliance for Preserving the History of World War II in Asia website. Many of us came from various communities in Southern California of the Chinese communities to support the retention of the statue. Not all of them will be speaking, and I ask you if you could please give us the opportunity to all stand up briefly so that you know how many of us are in support of retention of that statue. Could you please all stand up?
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Weaver, and I wish you the best. And
again,
give
tell
you
your
my
husband.
sympathy.
Tell your husband I wish he could have come along to see him again. If you're ever in this neck of the woods, I'll take you to lunch.
Got a deal.
Got a deal. Her husband and I worked together for the Corps of Engineers for 20-some years, so. Okay, next, Joseph Shine, or Shu. How do you say it? Followed by Teresa Yamian.
Okay, Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
Members of City Council. My name is Joseph Shea. I'm an American citizen. I'm also the resident of Glendale. I just live 2 blocks from here. I'm also the president and the founder of the American and Chinese World War II Memorial Monument Association. I'm so lucky. I'm the survivor during the World War II. Today, our member here, we have a father and a son who was a soldier during World War II. Please stand up. 这个父子. Yeah. Okay, a lot of people here, their father also involved World War II. And some of them passed away, some are still here. Our member and I thank you for the statue of the comfort woman, because it reminds us of the suffering caused the war, World War II. Please don't remove this statue. Thank you.
Thank you. Teresa, Yamya? I can't see the spelling. Followed by Chang Li.
Good evening, Mayor Weaver, council members, and staff. My name is Teresa Urimian. I am the Government Affairs Director of the Armenian National Committee of America Western Region, and I work 2 blocks from here. I'm here in support of the Korean Comfort Women's Monument. Council members, it is within the constitutional rights of this city to recognize and to memorialize human rights violations. Yet, in the recent Glendale News Press article, this monument was characterized as insulting a foreign country and that it would uproot relations with that country. Yet this monument is not a matter of insulting a foreign country. Rather, it is about supporting the Korean American constituents of the city of Glendale. By standing in solidarity on this issue, we make a strong statement on the violence against women. We make a strong statement against global human rights violations. Much like the case of the Armenian genocide, which has been brought up tonight, the city should be able to memorialize. It should be able to build monuments, and it should not be told what it can and cannot do by foreign countries and their foreign paid agents. Thank you.
Thank you. Chang Li, followed by Phyllis Kim.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council members, and the city staff. My name is Chang Li. I'm with the Korea Glendale Sister City Association, organization that was involved in placing the Peace Monument in Central Park. As you heard from previous speakers, you have diversified support from all communities, including Armenian community, Korean community, Chinese community, Japanese community, Filipino communities, and list goes on. You made the right decision, and you made a bold decision. So we thank you very much And we're all here to thank you and to support you. So I know that this frivolous lawsuit may get some attention, but know that the City Attorney's Office will do the right thing to defend the city's decision. And again, as part of this Korea Glendale City Association, one of the things I wanted to mention was that we did follow all the proper procedures, steps. The proper drawings were submitted, and in the drawing, I know the lawsuit claims that the language of the monument was not there. In the drawing, there was a language of the plaque was included in the drawing submitted to the city. So you can put that in the record. So we did follow all the proper procedures and steps, and it was done through the right procedures to erect the monument. So thank you very much for your support.
Thank you. Next
Mr.
speaker.
Weaver, could I ask the city attorney a question?
Mr. Garcia.
I know that individuals have protection under the Constitution and the First Amendment to free expression. Do cities also get extended the same protections of free expression and free speech?
Madam Councilmember Friedman, with respect to speech, yes, the government has an interest in free speech, especially on when it's using its own property and in proprietary interest. The government, the cities certainly have a right to assert its own free speech interest, especially when defending a lawsuit such as this.
Well, I understand that people in Japan and Japanese officials may not understand the United States Constitution, may not understand that cities have a right to express their beliefs freely. But I'm surprised that the Americans who brought this lawsuit don't understand the First Amendment and don't understand that the city has the right to express itself. Thank you.
Phyllis Kim, followed by Phil Chigakuni.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and the members of the City Council. My name is Phyllis Kim. I am a proud resident of Glendale and member of KAFC. I am very grateful and proud of the continued leadership of the members of the City Council that stands tall with the victims and justice and human rights. On February 22nd, LA Times reported that 2 individuals and nonprofit group filed a lawsuit seeking removal of Comfort Women statue in our city. This article received 5-star rating on the website. I am here to deliver the voices of the average American people reacting to that article. Below that article, many people responded to the news by posting comments. A few commenters echoed what is alleged in the complaint, but most of the commenters said that the statue should remain in the city of Glendale and Japanese government should resolve the Comfort Woman issue just like the Germans did for the Holocaust. So I want to share with you a few of the comments that received most thumbs up votes. Here we go. Larry Carroll said, "Shameful. The women are being victimized once again. The Japanese should apologize for what their ancestors did and get on with the business of being a modern, democratic nation, proud of what they have done and are doing since those long ago shameful days." Parasomnia said, "We have Holocaust memorials. Why can't there also be Comfort Women memorials?" Dr. Wynn said, "American citizens really need to back up this statue. Our countrymen fought and died to rid of such crimes committed by Japan." Jean Martin said, "I sincerely hope that the federal judge who is handed this case dismisses it with prejudice that makes those who have filed it pay for all court costs incurred by the city of Glendale." I really like this one. David Malner said, "To claim that by putting a memorial in a city park, the city is conducting foreign affairs and violating Supremacy Clause is simply idiotic and unsupportable. This should be thrown out of court as simply completely meritless. And if every monument that offends some person or persons was to be removed from public facilities, there would be no monuments left, except maybe one of Bugs Bunny." S. Bank said, To the woman who feels feelings of exclusion, discomfort, and anger when she sits near a statue honoring women victimized by the Japanese government during World War II, in America, we don't tell people how to feel any more than we tell communities what monuments they can erect in their parks. But let me give you a suggestion. Perhaps you could try to have some different feelings, like sorrow for fellow women who were abused, together with relief that neither Japan nor the country you live in, the United States, forces women to undergo repeated rape, as did the government of Japan during World War II. So there are many more comments under this article, and the ones that I read to you got the most stars, the upvote from the people. This shows a strong support for the city of Glendale for remembering the victims of crimes against humanity. Asking the Comfort Women statue be removed is the same as asking Holocaust memorials be removed. So as a proud resident of the city and as an active member of a broad and rapidly growing grassroots activists, we pledge our commitment to continue our support for the City Council's leadership. Thank you again, City of Glendale, for standing with human rights and women's rights. Thank you.
Thank you for coming. Hey, Phil Shigekuni, I don't know if I said that right, followed by Pedro Chan. How close did I get? Phil?
Good evening. Phil Shigekuni.
Oh, I got pretty close.
I am a Japanese American, and at age 8, I spent 2 years in an American concentration camp because I was seen as the enemy. And 25 years ago, this government apologized for what it did to us as American citizens. 120,000 of us were sent to camp. Most of us, 2/3 of us, were American citizens, such as I. So when we got the apology 25 years ago, it was kind of a time of rebirth for me, that I was kind of a born-again American because this country saw fit to apologize for the unconstitutional kinds of thing that it imposed on us. Not only that, but we got $20,000 each as compensation. So we're asking the Japanese government to issue another unequivocal apology similar to the one we got. Ours was signed by the President of the United States on behalf of the people, on behalf of the Congress. That was clear-cut. And I would like to make a similar request for the Japanese government to do the same thing with money. The money that they gave supposedly did not come from the government. It came from private contributions from the people, which the Comfort Women turned down because they saw it as an insult. And I agree. It was insulting. So we need to have memorials. There are memorials going up in all of the many of the concentration camps in this country to remind Americans what could happen. And so in a like way, we need to set up these kinds of memorials to remind this country as well as the rest of the world what can happen when the military takes over. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Pedro Chan, oh, that was you. David Yuen, oh, that's Pedro Chan now. Yes.
Mr. Mayor and all the council members, I'm Pedro Chan from Chinatown, and I used to have a medical office in the city of Glendale. I am an American citizen by naturalization. And I'm so proud of it because we all enjoy the freedom of speech. And this Comfort Women statue is a form of freedom of speech. is the freedom of expression, and this is why the city of Glendale should keep it here. Thank you.
Thank you. Which one of you back there? Jeez. Okay, let's see how we do on the next speaker. David Ewan, followed by Tamar Malakian.
Honorable Mayor Weaver and Honorable Glendale City Council members. My name is David Yun, and I'm the current president of the Greater San Gabriel Valley Lodge of the Chinese American Citizens Alliance. Today I brought a letter from our lodge requesting support for keeping Comfort Women statue. To wit, the Greater San Gabriel Valley Lodge of the Chinese American Citizens Alliance supports the retention of the Comfort Women statue. Koreans in general and Korean women in particular were violated by the Japanese Army, Imperial Army. The Japanese culture at that time was substantially based on Bushido, which regarded conquered people as dishonored, and harsh treatment was the norm. Imposition of sex slavery on the conquered was acceptable. The rape of Nanking by Iris Chan documents Japanese army massacring and raping the Chinese in that city. The Japanese government refuses to acknowledge and to apologize on war crimes committed by the Imperial Army during World War II in China and Korea. The German government apologized for atrocities committed by the Nazis. And now Germany can stand tall among nations again. We applaud the city of Glendale for holding firm on keeping the Comfort Woman statue as a reminder of Japanese war crimes and respecting this statue as an exercise of First Amendment right. We need to follow our conscience. We can forgive others, but we should never forget, so as not to allow history repeating itself. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Please, people, please. You do understand English. I know you do. Please, hold it down. Tamar Malakian, followed by Charles Mao.
Good evening, Mayor Weaver, City Council members, and City staff. My name is Talar Malakian. I'm Executive Director of the Armenian National Committee of America Glendale Chapter. I'm here today on behalf of our organization in support of the city's decision to erect the Comfort Women Memorial Statue in July in commemoration of the 80,000 to 200,000 women from Korea, China, and other countries who were forced into slavery and prostitution against their will. ANCA Glendale Chapter stands by the city in its recognition and acknowledgement of human rights violations and feels this memorial serves as a reminder that our city advocates for global justice, women's rights, and the very values our country was founded on. Thank you.
Thank you. Charles Mao, followed by Cindy Yee.
Honorable Mayor and City Council of Glendale. I'm going to be short and to the point, okay, so save time. My name is Charles Mao. I'm a U.S. citizen living in Monterey Park. And I'm also with the San Gabriel Lodge of Chinese American Citizens Alliance, okay. Now, I'm here to support the retention of the Comfort Women statue because I think it really serves a great reminder of what can happen to, it can really serve. Okay, it really serves as a reminder that what atrocity can be done. Okay, to the Korean women during World War II by the Imperial Army of Japan. So I would urge you to keep this statue in place in the city of Glendale. And thank you very much.
Thank you. Cindy Yee, followed by David Choi.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of the City Council. I'm a 40-year resident in the city of Monterey Park and one of the founders of the Mark Keppel Alliance, which I was mainly a supporter of schools against the Alhambra School District. But Glendale is my second home. Back in the 80s, I worked at Security Pacific Bank as a computer programmer off the brand. And my office was right down Broadway because they didn't have room for us. So I saw the second part of the Glendale Galleria being built. I saw the destruction of the building with the ball and chain, and then I spent a lot of tax dollars in Nordstrom when they had their sales. And some of my girlfriends and I still come to the city of Glendale to do our shopping. But I wanted to commend the city and thank you in your support of the statue of the Comfort Women. You should all be commended for this because it teaches our community, it teaches our future generations what can happen with atrocities of war. And I hope that they will learn from that. And I think there should be another statue erected, and that should be in LA City, where the Koreans are as well, so that they can remember what had happened. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Donald Choi. Donald Choi. One of you, Donald. Followed by Frank Gallo. Oh, what a... Donald Choi.
Actually, I didn't ask. Yes, and he told me to speak.
Oh,
okay.
she told you to speak. Okay.
Honorable
Are
Mayor,
you Donald Choi? Your name for the record.
My name is Hong Park, and...
oh, you didn't turn in a card.
Oh, you didn't? So,
okay, fill out a card after and give it to me.
I'll do that.
Donald Choi is not... No. Later. Talk. No.
Speak.
Talk.
I was confused.
Okay, you fill out the card after you speak. I assume you're speaking instead of Donald Choi. Fill it out later. Go ahead and speak.
I'll go speak.
Start the clock.
Okay, my name is Hong Park, and commander of Korean Veterans Association in Western region of the United States. I appreciate City of Glendale to make the statue and keep it well. And I like to say this. My point is, Japanese military system. I read many books about battle, about war. Any military didn't use as a weapon of controlling soldiers. Japanese used comfort ladies, girls, as reward for the soldiers who made a big victory, fighting good, and then next day they give a chance to have sex. So that way, Japanese military is very strong, very what do I say? Soldiers are very brave to get the reward. So
I didn't read any book, any word, any country they used sex for the ruling soldiers. Very upset about it. So we have to keep the statute for the generation, for education or military system. And then every country over the world, they will know, look at the statute, or even leaders, commanders, when they take a look at it, they're not going to do again like Japanese military system. So let's keep that very well, and I appreciate City of Glendale. Thank you.
Thank you. And now fill out a card.
Now I
turn in the card. Thank you. Frank Gallo, followed by William Min. Frank Gallo? He went home? He's outside? He went home. Okay. How about William Min?
Thank you, sir.
The Honorable Mayor, distinguished City Councilman, thank you for the opportunity for me to address you this evening. My name is William Min. I'm a naturalized U.S. citizen with home in Glendale. I apologize, I have not taken earlier effort to come to thank you for your wise, courageous administrative decision of the exemplary civic government. Today, I stand here because I was especially motivated from visiting a Japanese American museum down in Los Angeles, Little Tokyo, recently. What impressed me is the display of Japanese American internment camp that was in the state of Wyoming, each piece carefully hand-carried and reconstructed in the museum. And the wall was a wooden stake wall with northern wind piercing through mercilessly in the cold of Wyoming. And space that's no bigger than this, 5 Japanese American families shared with one bathroom. They were incarcerated for 4 to 5 years without trial, without proof they were a criminal. And brave Japanese American people brought the matter to the United States Supreme Court twice. Korema's case, Wakabayashi case, unfortunately, they both were defeated. But those Japanese American people with the urge for justice kept on their struggle even after the end of the war. Finally, President Ford formally apologized, as you have heard, and paid a restitution of $20,000 for each surviving Japanese American for the wrong it was done. Today, if you visit the museum, the identical shack stands there to remind the people of the world injustice must be prevented by preservation and accuracy of the history. That motivated me to come here tonight for the first time. I know there were a lot of people here who have contributed tremendous effort to make this possible. I am a survivor and witness of World War II. When I went to the elementary school, on my campus, I was born in Seoul, Korea. On my campus, the flag waved high in the spring wind, and that was Japanese imperial flag, not Korean flag. And language we had to speak was not Korean, but Japanese. If we spoke Korean, we got punished for it. One day, in the morning of student assembly, 3 8th grade girls stood on the platform with the Japanese principal introducing to the student body that those young ladies are brave enough and patriotic enough to volunteer to serve the Japanese country, government. Those little girls profusely sobbed in the endless fear. They were taken to the sex slavery. They were only 13 years old. That flashback never disappears from my memory of my childhood. They were about my age period. It did happen. Let's not deny it. They say it was contractual business. Baloney. Any civilized world do not recognize contractual power of 12-year-old minor girl. This justification is too far overdone. Are we going to let the distortion of history prevent the preservation and safety of our posterity? Japanese Americans have shown with their bravery and their fairness to fight the interman injustice. And it stands brilliantly in the museum today. Jewish people has preserved it in the Museum of Tolerance, and Armenians preserve it deeply in their heart, so as not to repeat it again. The statue of that comfort woman in the hall of Glendale civic property is the outcry of human conscience that world must never repeat that kind of atrocity. I bear nothing against Japanese people. It's not their fault. It's the misguiding military officers' fault. But doesn't matter who is to blame, who is to be victimized. It's got to be prevented. And if that's not important, what is? And if this is not the time to do it, when? And if we don't do it, then who will?
Thank you, sir, for coming. Okay, I saw every one of you. Okay, I have no more cards that are please oral communication. I think I can speak for all my colleagues in one simple statement. The council voted to put the comfort statue there. It passed. It's there. It's going to stay there. Period. Okay? Well, I'll let you applaud that. Okay, now you can all go home. Wait, just wait for 1 minute. We have no new business, right?
Yes, we do. We do, but
Hey, don't go yet. Is there comments? Okay. I'm sorry, stick around. There's comments. Mr. Najarian.
Thank you, Mr. Weaver. I won't repeat what you said, and I think council has spoken loudly and clearly many times on this issue. But I do want to point out one thing. I was rather concerned when I heard about this lawsuit for about a day, and then I realized what better place for the truth to come out than in a United States federal district court, and I'm quite sure that the truth will come out and that the rights, especially the First Amendment rights as addressed by Ms. Friedman and the city attorney, will come forward. I am upset at the law firm bringing this suit. Mayor Brown is a lawsuit that I'm quite very familiar with. It's a very high-quality law firm, and I am honestly confused as to why they would take such action. And to those Japanese Americans who in any way think that the action of this council is discriminatory, I would like to remind them and Japanese nationals in Japan that just a few years ago, during our Man's Inhumanity to Man season, it runs several months actually, we picked a book by Julie Otsaka, which the title was When the Emperor Was Divine, which in detail discussed the horrors that a young girl had when she was pulled from her family, a Japanese American, pulled from her family home in San Francisco and transplanted into one of those internment camps that Mr. Yoon has spoken about. Furthermore, this council is on record for supporting the creation of a memorial park at the location of a staging ground where Japanese Americans were forcefully taken just prior to their expulsion to the further away parks in Zanzibar and in Wyoming, etc. So this council is very sensitive to man's inhumanity to man wherever it occurs and whoever commits it. And we, as Americans, in no way claim to be saints in this, but what we do is we address and we acknowledge inhumanity when it occurs.
Thank you.
That's the city of Glendale.
Thank you. Any other? We're coming to a close. Mr. Sinani, you want to say?
Yeah, just a couple of comments. Again, I thank Council Members Friedman and Council Member Najarian for stating a lot of sentiments that I think we share on the issue of the Comfort Women Memorial. I do also regret the fact that this lawsuit's brought, because it takes something that's pure and it's noble and it's meant to commemorate, and it drags that pure thing into the gutter and makes it subject of a lawsuit. That's very regretful. But also, what it does is brings all of you together. And I'm so impressed by the mixture of individuals of the ethnic backgrounds that have shown up here, and the sentiment that's been expressed. I'm particularly proud of our Japanese American friends, specifically mentioned Mr. Monkawa and Mr. Shigakuni, for coming up and standing tall and standing principled and bringing honor to themselves and to Japanese Americans who stand for historical justice. And they specifically probably bring most comfort to the memory of comfort women, because I didn't mean to use that word twice in that sentence, but they bring most solace to the memory of comfort women, because when the acknowledgement comes from someone from the same type of ethnic background, I think it just means a lot more. And that's what I believe all Korean Americans, especially the victims of this crime, look for in the global sense. I'm very sorry, I regret very much again that this lawsuit is brought, because it seems like some fringe elements have taken a page from the Turkish lobby, and they're challenging our right to commemorate the truth and historical facts and seek historical justice. They're bringing in, challenging based on supremacy clause. It's something that's been done with the Armenian genocide issue in the past. They are using our allied relations with Japan as sort of a threat, because somehow truth is less important than political expediency, and that is not going to be the case in Glendale. We are not going to allow injustice to overrule justice, and we're not going to allow political expedience to be more important than the memory of victims of war crimes, and specifically war crimes committed during World War II. So that's it.
Want to applaud that one, too? Ms. Friedman.
We erected the statue because it's important to a large segment of our community. It also stands to remind us of the atrocities of war and to recognize a segment of the population that isn't always recognized, which is women and girls, who tend to be very hurt during conflicts and disproportionately victimized. As long as I'm on the City Council, the statue will remain. I will fight for it even when I'm off the City Council, because it's something that brings pride to our community. And I am very grateful to all of you for coming out today and for supporting the statue. I am happy that it's attracted so much attention worldwide. I think it's important that these issues are discussed, that the comfort woman issue is discussed, and I think the lawsuit will be put to bed very quickly, and we can move on, and we can continue to be proud of this statue. Thanks again for coming.
Mr. Mayor, if I may have 30 seconds.
No, we're done. Sorry. You had the time, the cards are turned in. All I can say is I cannot add anything to the eloquent statements made by my colleagues. I endorse them all. Now, if you will just stay patient for a second, we got about 1 minute of work to do, then you won't have to sneak out quietly. You can make noise going out, okay? Just sit tight. What's next?
Is there any new business?
Yes, there is. Mr. Sinanian.
Yes, we have a motion. It's moved by Council Member me, and seconded by
whoever's
to be determined. Yes, that the settlement of claim number C09-4375 brought by the City of Glendale against the City of Los Angeles, acting by and through the Los Angeles Department of Water and Power, regarding a dispute under transmission service agreement numbers 10007, 10929, and 10932 is hereby approved and accepted. The city manager is hereby authorized to execute a settlement agreement that provides for an offer to the City of Glendale of up to 50 megawatt of firm transmission at a 50% discount off the LADWP tariff price, a confirmation of the City of Glendale's right to aggregate transmission rights along certain transmission paths, and the cancellation of transmission invoices issued to the City of Glendale in May 2008 and May and June of 2009. A form of said settlement agreement shall be subject to the approval of the City Attorney.
Is there a second? Roll call.
Council members: Friedman.
Yes.
Najarian. Yes. Quintero. Sinanian.
Yes.
Mayor Weaver.
Aye. Now is there a motion to adjourn in the memory of my mother-in-law, Celia de Vera Turda?
So moved. Second.
Okay, we stand adjourned at 8:04 p.m. Now you can make noise.